When you think of the hardest cybersecurity job in the world, you might think about a chief information security officer, a penetration tester, or maybe even a senior security engineer at Google. These are definitely challenging jobs, but they're not the hardest. The hardest and arguably the coolest cybersecurity job in the world is working as a nation-state cyber operator. For example, working as an operator with the NSA's Tailored Access Operations Group, or TAO, Israel's Unit 8200, or even North Korea's Lazarus Group, or any of the other counterparts around the world. These are the people responsible for completing seemingly impossible missions, like damaging a nuclear facility halfway across the world with nothing but a computer virus, or stealing $1.5 billion of cryptocurrency from a super hardened corporate network. This level of cyber operator routinely achieves the impossible and quite literally changes the course of world events all from behind a keyboard. So today we're going to do a deep dive on nation-state operators, and we're going to discuss mission, tools, and tradecraft. We're going to talk about skills and mindset. I'm going to play a few clips from somebody in our group who actually got picked up by one of these organizations. We're going to talk about the training and recruitment process, and then finally we're going to talk about career path and salary. So like I said in the beginning, there's a lot of these different groups all around the world. They're called APTs, or Advanced Persistent Threats. You can kind of look them up, but in this video we're going to focus on NSA's Tailored Access Operations Group, or TAO. NSA TAO is basically inescapable. If you're just a normal person and you happen to be targeted by them for some reason, there's quite literally nothing you can do about it.
You will do nothing because you can do nothing.
There's quite literally no escape, and the tailor and tailored access operations means they're going to tailor an operation specific to their objective, and they're going to keep iterating on it until they've met their objective or completed their mission. Targeting something like an individual civilian who doesn't know what's going on is basically easy work for them. For example, the NSA is likely hoarding a lot of zero-day exploits and vulnerabilities that nobody else knows about. So if they really wanted to, and if you're a high enough value target, they could just point and click and compromise your iPhone or whatever phone you happen to have. If they have an exploit chain for it, just chilling out in their office and just compromise you without much effort. If that doesn't work, they can pretty much do anything else they want. Like nothing short of buying out the property management company that manages your apartment, scheduling like a routine maintenance and installing some new windows for you, but like the window frame actually has some like super high-tech acoustic resonance thing that like ports everything happening in your apartment out to some satellite that they're capturing. That's like a bit far-fetched, and they're not going to do that kind of thing to a civilian, but pretty much like anything is within the realm of possibility with NSA. The NSA is known for doing things like literally tapping those transcontinental fiber optic wires like underneath the ocean, also they can intercept data. If there's not a way to get the information that they want to get, they will literally make the way. That's what tailored stands for in tailored access operations. They have a lot of budget and a lot of smart people. There's basically no escape short of like putting a paper bag on your head, throwing your phone away, and just moving into the forest and staying away from all technology. There's pretty much nothing you can do. So getting right into the skills and mindset that you need to have in order to enter this world and survive. So basically we have this group, we meet every week and we talk about cybersecurity things like our industry and job hunting and this type of stuff. And one guy who's in our group actually got picked up by one of the largest US defense contractors in the world to do cyber operations, and he may or may not be working alongside the types of units we're talking about in this video. And it's really interesting because he talks about like how he became who he is and his mindset and like what he does every day and just like in general like who he is and how he got picked up by the government. And it's really interesting and valuable to listen to because these type of people are not normal. Like I know they're not normal, but I say this in like a good way, but you'll be able to tell like when you talk to him. It's kind of like if you want to do this at this level, you have to become that thing. It's not something like, oh, I'm gonna like go to work and then, you know, study for 2 hours for it and then hopefully I'll go work, you know, at the NSA. It's you have to like become that thing. But anyway, I don't want to yap too much. Just listen to him. It's really valuable and really interesting.
You know, I'm not a genius. I think anybody could do it if you really have like the openness to accept that it's not easy and it's not straightforward. A lot of people, they've been asking me like, you know, they come in with the wrong mindset. The mindset that they come at it with is like, give me A, B, and C so that I can be like you. And A, B, and C is not how I got like me, right? Like it was just a bunch of little things, you know, trying something out, something doesn't work, figuring out why it didn't work, and then figuring out why the things that did work. And then years later, realizing that the reason that it worked wasn't the original reason that I thought it worked, right? Like making something and knowing why it worked are like two completely different things, right? And then improving it is something completely different. So, I think anybody could do it. I just think that you have to have a different mindset. And if you want to do exactly what I do, I think that's for a specific set of people, right? So for the people who don't know, I am or at least I recently got a job and accepted an offer as a cyber software engineer, right? And they're letting me do both red and blue team activities. So purple team, if you want to call it that. But I explicitly work with red team and I explicitly work with blue team. So, and I've never really studied or anything related to cybersecurity. I still don't have a college degree, right? Like, and I'm pretty sure I won't get one for a little bit, just because I think it's cool saying I don't have one. But that's it. But if I need to use an exploit, I might use exploit DB just for reference, and then spend like, an hour or 2 hours a day or two, like writing it myself to make it work for myself, right? So for exploits and things like that, I just do it by hand, with Python or something.
So you do everything from PowerShell or the command line command?
Yeah, like a command line hero. Like, I like to consider myself like a, what do you call it, lay of the land kind of hacker, right? Like, whatever you got, I will make something work with it. Like, if you give me a text editor, I can probably make you a shell code. You know what I mean? It's give me any language. I could probably make something and do something with that. Any editor, any whatever.
So can you talk about like it takes like certain mindsets to do that? Because I feel like I can execute and do a lot of stuff, but I don't have like the mindset to really like pick apart everything and like implement my own stuff that makes it work for me. Like, is that just how you are? You just feel like you want to do it, or is it more conscious? Or
Yeah, so I would explain it like this. Like, I've never been in cybersecurity, right? Like, I would never say like, oh, I'm a cybersecurity professional or like aspiring to do it. Like, I actually wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid, like a neurosurgeon. Like, there was one time in the 6th grade, my friend got locked outside of his house. And I was like, oh yeah, I know how to pick locks. And he's like, yeah, bullshit. I was like, okay, give me your pin. So I took it was a pin with like a metal clip on it, took it, bent it, took our homework, ripped off the paper clips, and just straight up picked his lock right then and there. Like, I'm just built for the shit, straight up. Like, I wake up the same way that I go to sleep, right? Like, I don't wake up and put a hacker hat on. I don't wake up and put like a reverse engineer. I just do it. You see what I mean? Like, the curiosity and stuff like that goes for everything. Like, I have my own motorcycle, car, whatever. I manually take it apart, figure out the electronics, figure out the wiring, and put it back together, right? So it's for everything. It's not just code or software or whatever. Every single thing. One of the things that I want you guys to understand is that you don't have to be amazing, but you do have to know where you are. I asked somebody who had he doesn't have a degree. He's working on getting a degree. He had a job as a business analyst and some other coding job. And he started that in like 2023, and then he moved on and then got a better job in like 2024 and then got laid off. This guy, I know him in real life. I asked him, where do you think you are in Python? And he said an 8. I said, I think you're a 2. And he said, what? And I said, okay, can you tell me about list comprehension? Right. Python was the first language I started with. Right. And I asked him, how would you do list comprehension? What does it look like? He said, I don't know. I said, okay, well, how would you manage context? Right? Like, how would you open a context for something and close the context? The answer to that question is you use the with statement. So I was expecting him to at least be able to Google it. Like, if you don't know something, it's okay to say that you don't know, but don't bullshit yourself. Don't bullshit me and don't bullshit yourself, right? Like, he should have known that he was a 2. He got done talking with me and he said, I really think I'm a 0 after talking with you. And I said, yeah, and that's your language. That's not my language, right? There's a lot for you to know, but you should have known from the beginning where you were. right? You inflated your own perception of yourself, and it's really messing you up because now you don't know that there's a lot to know, right? So in respect to that, I really don't think I'm that great of a hacker, right? Like I have one unclaimed 0 day that I don't get to claim because I left my company and I don't get to like report on it, right? But I don't have any CVEs. I don't have any like vulnerabilities associated to my name, and I would like to at least have that, before I say I'm a hacker or I am this. Other than that, I'm just some dude, who codes and reverse engineers, but I'm not really doing anything groundbreaking, and I'm okay with that. I'm aware of that. I'm self-aware, right? I might be better than other people, but I am also aware that the skill ceiling for this field is very, very, very high, right? So as long as you guys have like the same, awareness, it just gets that much easier to set your targets on being good, like really good. And you don't have to be really that good to get a job, right? Obviously, I got one, so
Hopefully that gives some kind of context. It helps to be really adept and then develop an obsession with figuring out how things work and like take them apart, put them back together, and like do it over and over again and just keep doing that and become that type of person. Couple that with a deep understanding of an operating system, the ability to code with low-level languages, and then just to iterate on that for a couple thousand hours and you'll be well on your way. So getting into how these cyber operators are recruited and trained. So after listening to Viper, you kind of have somewhat of an idea. You could just become that guy and then randomly get headhunted by the government, but there's also other ways into the field as well. I've kind of looked at all of them. So basically the ways are you get headhunted by some agency, right? The path of less resistance is you would go through the military like as an enlisted person. You could go through the military as an officer. You could apply directly to government agencies and get some kind of GS position like directly with the government, like the NSA or something like this. Or you can work for a large defense contractor. I was strongly considering just trying to apply directly to the NSA. Like my skill is not high enough to do it, but before I was going to embark on that journey to like really like get good, me and my friend actually like flew down to Maryland and like looked around Fort Meade and like looked around the area, before actually applying to there. But I didn't actually do it because I'm doing YouTube now instead for various reasons. But I'm familiar with like directly applying to the NSA, but I'm more familiar with going the military route because I researched those quite a bit as well. So I'm going to talk about a bit about the officer route, which is really high barrier to entry, specifically with the Navy, and I'll talk about the enlisted route, which is a bit lower barrier to entry. It's like a bit easier to get into. So I'll talk about the Navy officer route first. They have like the position called the cyber warfare engineer. There's quite a bit of requirements for it. You can just kind of look at them on the screen. Yeah, you need to have a bachelor's degree in like a certain field and whatnot. But I got to the point where I was actively communicating with one of the recruiters to get into the cyber warfare engineer program. But to even apply to that, to even begin to be competitive, they invited me to this Slack group, and you have to like basically, if you think about being a corporate software engineer, it's kind of like you have to be like a high-ish end corporate software engineer, but proficient in low-level programming languages, which tend to be more difficult, like C, for example. And then you need to be like really, really good at cyber operations and offensive security already. You kind of have to be like a really good corporate software engineer and like a really good corporate pen tester, like all together, like the top end. So for example, you have to pass a technical screener, which is a capture the flag style challenge, at least last I knew. And then there's like a technical interview portion as well. So for the technical screener, you have to be able to just bang out programs in C. You have to be able to perform binary exploit development and then reverse engineer compiled binaries. And those like few things that I just mentioned is over 1,000 hours already of like dedicated study to be like really proficient in them. It's a lot of effort. And then the technical interview portion, you can kind of think about that like a corporate interview, but with C, where you're doing like LEET code and then data structures and algorithms. And then again, like reverse engineering, various exploit techniques. And then you need to have some like general computer science fundamentals down, as well as like networks and operating systems. And this stuff is really, really difficult. I'm good at studying, and it's not something that you can just like simply like sit down and start studying, especially those like binary exploitation and reverse engineering. It's just like for me, it's a bit of a pain in the ass because you have to load up a debugger and like get your environment ready and like all this stuff and like really get into the flow. And if you get disrupted, it just like ruins it for you. And it's quite challenging. It's something that if I could just stop doing business in YouTube, I would probably have a lot of fun focusing on this, but I have like too much stuff going on, so it's just hard to do. So I really respect the people who just naturally fall into this on their own. And then after you go through all of that study, if you just so happen to get like picked up and then brought into the program, you'll undergo like another 2 to 3 hours of specialized military cyber warfare engineer, cyber operator training before even going on any kind of missions. And at that point, you can expect to be like a pretty good, right? And then getting into the lower barrier to entry, there's a position with the Navy called CTN, or Cryptologic Technician Network, I think is the acronym. It's a bit weird, but this one has much less requirements. You can basically like take the ASVAB, that's like the military's battery test that sees like what jobs you qualify for, and if you score high enough on that, you're allowed to get to that rate as long as it's open. It might be like really competitive though. So if you're trying to do this, you're trying to get enlisted in the Navy, doing CTN, like going that route. Before you even do that, I would make sure you're like pretty decent. You don't have to be like cyber warfare engineer level, but I'd make sure like you're decent enough at offensive security, and I would try to like have a degree and maybe like even OSCP if you're really trying to get like picked up once you get in that pipeline. Because say you get picked up as an enlisted Navy CTN, you will go to like MEPS, medical processing, you'll go to boot camp, and then after boot camp you'll go to your school. The school is called JCAC. I think it's like a Joint Cyber Analyst course. I believe that's what it stands for, and that's in Pensacola, Florida. And you'll go out there, and I believe it's like 6 months long or so. But if you do like really, really good in JCAC, you'll have the opportunity to apply for or be picked up by this program called ION. I think it's like an interactive on network. It's just like the elite like cyber operator version of CTN, where you actually do like offensive cyber operations. So you have to be like really good. I don't know like the metrics or whatever, but you have to be really good in order to be picked up by that. So that's why I say like if you're planning to do that, you should try to be like really good before you even like enter the CTN program. It will just like increase your chances of getting picked up by ION. And if you do get picked up by ION, then you're more likely to be working closer probably toward the NSA and specialized offensive groups like tailored access operations. So that's one way to do it. But it's possible like, you go to the Navy and then you fail JCAC. You don't even get picked up for ION, but you fail JCAC because you didn't prepare enough, and then you go be like a cook or whatever else the Navy wants you to do. Or you stay as a CTN, which is a pretty dope job in and of itself, and you just don't get picked up by ION, and you just be like a normal, cryptologic technician network person. And I'm sure you can like apply to it down the road or something. There's probably some other avenues, but this is like a lower-ish barrier to entry, and I was really considering doing that one as well, but I just like didn't for some reason. And then like I said, of course, there's like directly applying to the NSA and like directly applying to defense contractors like Booz Allen or Lockheed Martin or Raytheon or some other big ones that are not coming to my head right now. But of course, if you apply to those, you kind of have to be like Viper already. You have to be like really, really good, be picked up. And if you become that guy or that girl, that's like legit unicorn status, and you'll get picked up if you can do this stuff. It's just that stuff it's so difficult to do. Like even like people who are like really good or have a lot of discipline. Like I have a lot of discipline, I just didn't do it because it required like too much of me. So it's hard to do, but if you become that person and you apply, there's probably not a lot of competition. So there's those as well. So getting into the salaries and like the career path for these different positions, I'll talk about the Navy CTN Enlisted first. So you can just kind of look at this here. This is public information, and it's mostly based off of your enlisted rank. So E3 to E6. Usually you'll join the Navy at E1 if you have like nothing when you go into it, but a lot of the CTNs will have a degree or some certs or something which lets you join at E3 or E4. So you can kind of expect anywhere from 28,000 per year up to 47,000 per year, and that doesn't seem like that much, but considering the fact that military literally pays for everything for you, and well, almost everything, right? And then you get to go to trainings that, for example, if I'm like, please just let me join JCAC, I'll give you $250,000. I can't even join that, even if I pay like a ton of money, right? But you get to go to JCAC and do all this like cool military training, and if you get picked up by ION, you get more like cyber operator training that I can't even have access to that, even if I pay for it, right? So it's not a bad deal, especially if you want to go in at like a lower barrier to entry and you just want to have a career for yourself. It's not too horrible. 28,000 to 47,000. And again, I want to say like This could like increase or decrease a lot depending on if you, or it could increase if you like live off base, you get like an extra allowance. And sometimes you can get like hazard pay or hardship pay if you're stationed like somewhere weird, right? It just depends. So generally speaking, this is what you would expect as like the enlisted level CTN, like if you enter through that pipeline, I guess. And next is a cyber warfare engineer. This is the officer. Same kind of deal, you know, with like the pay and the basic allowance for housing and this type of stuff. So you can expect 43,000 to 110,000. Probably it's going to be more than this. There's probably other like little random things here and there, like not to mention the training and like insurance and like all that other stuff. But this is kind of what you would expect. And then you can always like ask ChatGPT or kind of try to verify these on your own. And then working as NSA full-time, like directly for the government. A lot of the time, government positions, they're classified as GS. They have like a GS salary schedule. You can look it up. And the range is like quite wide here. And I don't have like insight into the NSA and like what they pay people, but this looks about accurate for government positions, like ranging from 50K at the very entry level all the way up to close to like 200,000 or so. It just really depends on like where you come in at and like your qualifications in all of this stuff. I can't speak on this very much, but you can get some kind of an idea by looking at this. And then getting into the defense contractor one, where you're working as like under the defense contractor, not directly to the government, but with like Lockheed or Raytheon or something like this as a cyber operator, you can kind of expect these levels of pay. And you'll probably also have a top secret security clearance, which is like pretty expensive, or it commands like a decently high salary. So you can just kind of like eyeball these and get some kind of an idea. And it's really interesting because if you're like at that level where you can discover 0 days on your own, there's like a whole dark market for 0-day exploits. Say you find like a 0-day vulnerability or something, you could be like a good boy or a good girl and turn it into a government, or like tell Apple and be like, oh, I found a mistake somewhere, like a vulnerability. You could do that, and then maybe you get a pat on the back if you work for the NSA, or maybe Apple gives you like $20,000 for your vulnerability that you discovered. But if you decide to sell that on the dark market, maybe you found like a remote code execution vulnerability on like a Samsung or like an iPhone or something like this, that will sell for like a 6-figure sum, like a mid to high 6-figure sum, or even 7-figure sometimes. If you're that level, the people who are that level, a lot of them are like not even working for the government, or they're working for some government doing like malevolent activities, or they're just a black hat, because that's technically more lucrative than trying to be like a white hat or even like a gray hat. It just really depends. It's just like really interesting, right? Because there's like a whole like other world, and it's just really interesting to think about. I'll put a few links in the description if you want to look into different resources for studying like binary exploit development or like x86 assembly, because I kind of like studied those things a bit when I was interested in it. So I'll dump a bunch of resources in the description, but hopefully you liked this video. If you thought this one was interesting, definitely check out this other video. I talk about like what I would do personally if I had to start over and try to get myself to making 500K in cybersecurity a year. So that one's a pretty interesting video. Check that out, and we'll see you in the next one.